Welcome to the Devout-ish podcast, where we have honest conversations about messy faith. I'm your host, Phoenicia. If you've ever questioned God, struggled with church culture, or felt like you're somewhere in between, this podcast is for you. No cliches, no pressure to be perfect, just real talk about faith, doubt, and everything in between. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Devout-ish, where we have honest conversations about messy faith. I am your host, Phoenicia. And for this episode, we are going to be talking about something that has been an extreme process for me, something that is very personal, and that is unlearning religion. So, as someone who grew up in, around, and under church, unlearning religion has become more of a job to me than an actual like growth experience, because there are so many things that you find out, so many things that come to your attention that you weren't aware of, things that you are trying to debunk when it comes to myths and all these other things. It can become a lot. And that's why I say it's starting to turn into a job rather than an actual like growth experience when it comes to life, or how I want to live my faith, or live in my faith rather. So yeah, with that, now as adults, I feel like there are definitely plenty of us who are finding ourselves in the space of unlearning religion, unlearning certain generational things or traditions that we were taught while growing up. And we find ourselves in these crossroads because we're stuck between, do I really want to believe this, or do I just want to say fuck it? So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode today. So stay tuned. So before we deep dive into the conversation, let's get clear on what religion is for some of the cousins who may not know. So religion is a system of beliefs, rules, and rituals used to worship a higher power. And as we know, in our times, there are many different higher powers that people choose to believe in. But on this show, we believe in God. Okay. So basically, here's where things get tricky. Where religion can definitely become toxic, and it starts to feel like God is only accessible through rules, the guilt, and fear, instead of focusing more so on the relationship and the freedom and the grace that comes with building a relationship with God. Because I don't believe that grace is only reserved for those who go to church every Sunday, or you just live your life right and by the T. No, God's grace is sufficient for everyone. God's grace has no limits on it. Now, when you just go out here doing dumb stuff just because, and you feel like, well, God's grace is da 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 whatever, and I can do, no, you're taking it all out of context. You're being stupid. So basically, when I say that God's grace is sufficient and He has enough for everyone, basically, you don't have to be on the same level as someone in the church or outside of the church just to receive God's grace. God's grace has no labels. You can't expect to block someone else's grace, if that makes sense, by just saying that, well, what makes them deserving? Well, how come they do that? Well, it's none of your business because you're not on their walk. So that's why I feel like with religion, it's just a way for people to legit keep folks out of this social club. That's what religion feels like to me, a social club. So does church. It feels like a social club sometimes. Now, don't get me wrong. I love going to church, but sometimes people do the most when it comes to that. And the things that take place in church, not saying that every church does this, but a lot of things are very performative, and it gives performative because it's just like every Sunday you got to do that. Do you really have to? yeah, I don't know. And it's like, I get it. You don't know anybody's story. You don't know where they came from. You don't know what they going through. But nah.
Can you break that down for those who don't know what performative action means within the church? Are you talking about as far as like people catching the Holy Ghost running around the church? Like, can you go a little bit more in depth about what you're talking about? What you just said?
Of course. So when I say performative, basically, kind of like what you just said, like now, granted, the spirit hits everybody differently. For sure. It really does. And you can never, I don't want to say you can never tell when somebody is faking when they're excuse me, when they catch the Holy Ghost. But sometimes you know when people are shouting out of flesh, if that makes sense. Like you can see it. And it's like, okay, girl, okay, boy, that's cute, but all right. So yeah, it's just like stuff like that. And then also, another thing that I noticed about about church is sometimes in sermons, like pastors make the sermon about them.
So, next question: how do you feel about the Marvin Sapp situation?
Oh my God. Whew, okay. I gotta sit up for that one. So the Marvin Sapp situation. Okay. So basically, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Marvin Sapp. I have nothing against this man whatsoever. And I kind of feel like people are taking that situation completely out of context. Now, how it was done, it was definitely like, now, all right, Marvin, okay. But if you have not grown up in the church or have parents who had parents who forced them to go to church and so on and so forth, that was legitimately something that they would do in the church. But they wouldn't say like, close the doors, da 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 da, whatever. Right, lock the doors or whatever. Like during offering, sometimes they would definitely say, please like refrain from walking during this time. You know, same thing with the invitation at the end of church. Like, I don't want to say that it's tradition, but for me, out of respect, you don't need to be walking before the benediction is given in the church. That's just me. Like for me, I feel like that's a respect factor. And then also, just recently at my church that I attend, um, there was a point where the pastor was doing the invitation and literally like all you saw was people in the balcony, like it was a mass exodus during church. And everybody was just looking around like, dang, okay, so are we leaving right now? Or are y'all going to stay for the benediction? And the reason why I feel like people put so much emphasis on, I'm going to get back to Marvin Sapp, but the reason why people put so much emphasis, the reason why people put so much emphasis on not walking during the invitation is because that is truly a time where people who are not saved or want to join the church or like literally get on the right path to their salvation, that is their time of vulnerability. That is a vulnerable time during service. And if that person who's already nervous and anxious is getting up and getting ready to walk to the altar, and then all of a sudden they see all of these people moving and walking, they gonna sit down. They not gonna move. And it's kind of like, for me, I feel like, y'all, it's only like what, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Where y'all gotta go in 5 or 10 minutes? Now, granny, y'all grown. Y'all do what y'all want to do. That's cool. But for me, I feel like that's extremely disrespectful. It really is. And also the benediction outside of the sermon and praise and worship, the benediction is the most important part of service. Because that is the part where you are getting covered before you walk back into the world. Not to say that, okay, well, let's just give a little thing. Let's just say you leave church before the benediction or you leave church after the benediction and you get into a car accident. God forbid, you get into a car accident and this car accident was so horrible, you were supposed to die in this accident, but you didn't because you were covered. Now back to Marvin. So with the Marvin Sapp situation, I feel like don't nobody move. Ushers lock the doors. We need to raise this offering. No. Because what if all I have in my pocket is $5? Or what if all I have in my pocket is $19? Is that not enough to raise the offering? And then for you to say the amount of people or the number of people in the room at that time, if everybody in the room gave $20, we'll meet our goal or whatever. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't see the entire clip, but yeah, like just to me that's very mm, yeah, no, I don't know about that one, Braxton, to be quite honest. Holding people against their will just because they don't give a certain number in offering to me is definitely it's giving, oh man, not art. No, we're not gonna do that. But it's definitely it's sending the wrong message to people who don't really understand what that is. So I would say to somebody who is new to the faith, they may have taken that definitely in a very different a different way than what was than what was trying to be. Yeah, for sure.
Because Jesus said, I may not have $20.
Right.
I may not have the means to get the money. I'm coming to the church so I can build upon my closeness to God.
See,
Not monetary value.
and that's where prosperity preaching comes into. Ooh, it's so much. See, that's Braxton. That's what I was talking about. It's too much stuff to talk about. But we're gonna talk about prosperity preaching a little bit later. But yeah. So basically, with religion, when it's distorted, it can definitely feel like religion is choking the hell out of your faith because you feel like or you care more about how things look rather than how you are being transformed. And you start performing instead of praying. And you start showing up for people, but you're not showing up for God. And so with this moment, when I had discovered that I wanted to take this journey of unlearning certain traditions when it comes to religion and things like that, I told myself that I was going to leave the church and seek God for myself. And with that, I definitely started to question a lot of things. More so, why is church forced upon people when it comes to building a relationship with God? You have to be in church to build a relationship. You don't have to be, but people can choose to be in church to build a relationship with God. Because don't get me wrong, the church an amazing place, but also the church is just people. People make the church. So with that, you have to, with unlearning religion, you have to also unlearn some of the things that people have done to you in the church. Meaning, or some of the things they said to you in the church. Meaning, when someone talks about you in regards to how you dress or how you show up, that's not their job. They're not people. I feel like people have no right to police anybody in regards to what they wear to church. Who says that? Who says that you are the fashion police? I'm not looking for you. I'm not looking or dressing myself for you. I came here to get a word. Yes, I can look cute I can look cute while doing it, but that don't mean I'm gonna show up with heels and makeup on every single Sunday. So I think people have truly made church into how you look instead of how you feel afterwards or how you feel during the service. And I feel like that safe space of what church is supposed to be has been taken away because of that. And I hate that. I hate that for a lot of people. And for me, honestly, where that began for me is when once again when I cut my hair. Some people didn't like the fact that I cut my hair because they felt like I was looking I was looking mannish. It wasn't feminine. Very. Um it wasn't feminine. People rather see me with my wigs and my weaves and things like that rather than seeing me with my haircut. In reality, it had nothing to do with that. It was just jealousy. But then also it was man-made opinions. It was just your opinion. Who says that I can't show up to church with my haircut? Like, are y'all really gonna turn this into a religious thing? But anywho,
I also think that people will project their insecurities, their hatred for themselves onto other people.
for sure. And that's all that people are doing. And that's why I was telling you, like with the whole sermon situation, like sometimes I feel like a lot of pastors make sermons about them. They really do. But anywho, so basically with me unlearning religion, I got to a point where I started questioning a lot of things. And of course, with this, I love my mom to death. And I'm so grateful that I have a mother who is extremely supportive in regards to my walk and truly figuring out what God is to me. Because not at any point of my life or my journey, my mother has ever made me feel like I couldn't come to her and ask her questions. And I pray that whoever is out there right now who is going through this very journey, that you have that support because you are going to need it. Unlearning religion takes community. Whether that community is your parents, whether it's a support group, a focus group, or whatever group you have, your group of friends who are like minded like you, it takes people and not just yourself to get through this journey. Now, granted, you're going to have to find some things or figure things out for yourself and how they, how things are working for you. But in regards to asking those questions, it's a lot of information out there, y'all. And I feel like there are so many social media evangelists and so many things out there to where you can easily get confused and thrown into something that you didn't want to be in at first. So, doing your research for yourself and then coming back with those questions and asking people who you know have been in the church all their lives, how do you feel about this? Have you ever thought about this? And there have been times where I've asked my mom, like, "Mom, have you ever thought about why we celebrate Easter or why we celebrate Christmas?" And she'll be like, "Yeah, babe. So for Easter, it's definitely about, the resurrection. That's the main point of Easter." And I was like, "Okay, Ma. So when it comes to Easter, why do they associate Easter with Easter bunnies and eggs? What's the point of that?" And she was like, "Well, baby, I'm not going to sugarcoat nothing for you, but church people." She said because it was something that was made a tradition by people, by man. God never said that he wanted y'all to go out and find Easter eggs with jelly beans and money and all the other things. Like that's not the purpose of Easter. Now, granted, I'm not saying let me okay. I'm not saying I'm against it, which I'm not. Do you? But when you're doing something, do you know the true purpose behind it? Or are you going to remove the meaning from it just to make yourself feel comfortable? But yeah, when I asked my mom that, she straight up told me, she was like, "Yeah, babe, that's something that was definitely man made. It's not real, but God is real. Him raising from the dead on the third day is real. Him rolling away the stone is real. Him dying for our sins is real. You know? So when you celebrate these things, don't forget the true reason behind it. Just like they say Jesus is the reason for the season, but y'all out here taking the H and the L off of Hobby Lobby to get some tree decorations, and y'all out here rolling deep down to Walmart, fighting the associate for a flat screen that you get every single year because the price ain't what it was advertised on Facebook. But you wrapping your gifts in Jesus is the reason for the season gift wrap. Clock it. But yeah. So what I'm saying is asking those questions and really get into the true meaning behind some of these things will definitely open your eyes to a whole new world when it comes to unlearning certain traditions and things like that. And granted, like I said, y'all, I have absolutely nothing against these traditions of how you celebrate Easter, how you celebrate Christmas. I love those holidays. But one thing that I know for sure while being on this journey is I want to make sure that I am truly living out and celebrating the true reason behind these things and not just in the societal norms of what happens behind these holidays. So whether that's, actually teaching my baby, baby, this is the true reason behind Easter. This is the true reason why we gather together for Christmas. Not to really worry about the gifts, not to worry about the decorations, but this person here who we just spoke about during Easter, dying for our sins, this is us giving thanks for, his life. You know, this is why we do these things. It's to come together to be a family. You can do this on Thanksgiving too, but Christmas, you can do it for Christmas too. But it's more than just gifts. It's more than just decorations. So that's why I feel like it's super important to, when you're unlearning these things, is to also put in some of your ways of honoring what you know now to be true, but without sucking the life out of things too. Because I do know a few people who just flat out, why you celebrate Christmas? Why you celebrate Easter? That ain't really real, da 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 da, whatever. Once again, your walk is not my walk. Yes, I know the reason behind it, but I'm also not going to be a Debbie Downer and force somebody else to believe something that I believe, or force somebody to not celebrate something just because, the real reason behind it. You can get out of my face. So, anywho, but yeah, basically asking those questions with my mother, she really clarified a lot of things for me. And the fact that I can come to her and ask her those questions made me feel very safe. And like I said, I pray that if anybody is on that same journey as me, that you have that safe space to talk about those things and ask those questions without feeling shunned, because it's truly just tradition. It has nothing to do with the number in which you will be getting through the gates of heaven at all. So, yeah, producer, do you have anything for that?
Um, as far as the holiday thing goes, I think we've lost the real tradition and interpretation of what it means. Like, for instance, black people only get together for Thanksgiving because of the food. And I haven't seen you in 6 to 10 years, and all of a sudden, we family again. No. Thanksgiving is supposed to be an event to pay homage or homage to what you're thankful for, not thankful for what you want to put on your plate to eat.
Mm-hmm.
What around this time are you thankful for? Like, I'm not, and then even Christmas. Christmas isn't about presents. It's the time to be around family, to enjoy the abundance that God has given you and granted you, the family that you have, not to come around for presents. Because to be honest, if we look at it, or have we done everything right to even be granted the opportunity to even get presents? Because in life, we know we all are sinners. Because if we didn't sin, we would be God, which we're not. So if we look ourselves in the mirror, and do we have the right to get presents?
Mm.
Do we? What in life have we done that is so monumental for us to be entitled to getting something?
I was just about to say that. It seems like we have taken this tradition and tradition has turned into entitlement.
Yes.
That's good. That's good. It has turned into entitlement. And that brings me to our next segment. Basically, in all of this, the connection to God I feel like truly gets lost. And and with that I feel like in the traditions, in religion or whatever, it was forcing me to look at all the things that all the things that I was doing right or wrong. And truly there shouldn't be a right or wrong way to pay reverence to God. I was I was so afraid to show up to church some days because I just felt like I just always had this eye on me for some odd reason. Like I couldn't be myself. I couldn't ask questions. I could never be curious. And it was all because people just felt like you should just shut up and get the word and not question anything. Even in Bible studies, sometimes the preacher would be the only person talking. And I'm like, how was this supposed to be? Right. Like, how is this supposed to be a time for us to learn when we can't even ask questions or you turn Bible study into a sermon? Like, huh? So it's like in those moments, it's like, okay, how am I supposed to learn anything if I'm not given the room or the floor in order to ask questions if I need clarity on something that you're talking about? Because a lot of times y'all be throwing these words and things like that into these sermons. They be like, sir, let me get my dictionary real quick because, huh? What does that even mean? So that's what I'm saying. Like you're preaching for you. You're not preaching for the people who you're supposed to be, giving this knowledge to. Like you're preaching for yourself. You're preaching to look good, to sound good. Now, my pastor, hmm, that man, when I say I leave church like I just left a college lecture, because I leave with a word and I leave nourished. Because not only is he giving me a word, but he's giving me vocabulary that I can take and apply to things. He's giving me a word that I can go home and study for myself because I'm just so intrigued with how this man could take a simple Bible verse and turn it into this whole lesson that once again opens you up to a whole new world of things that you never thought about. Being in a space like that where you feel like you're learning something instead of somebody talking to you. Like that's one thing that I had to learn for myself is every sermon ain't supposed to be about the preacher. So yeah. But even when it comes to like my prayer life, I don't really know if you can be taught how to pray. Now, can you be given like certain prayer points in regards to, I don't want to say things to say, that'll be more like taught. But prayers don't have to be perfect. Prayers are not meant to be perfect. And in church, I felt like my prayers always had to be perfect because because I could always hear or see how this person prayed during devotion or when there was weekly prayer meetings and this person prayed like this and said this. And I felt like because their prayers were like that, my prayers had to be like that. Yeah, like feeling like I had to pray like that or be in that same posture in order for my prayers to be heard by God. But seeing someone pray like that, I felt like I had to pray like that. And it was very discouraging. And because I felt like my prayers had to sound and look like that, I found myself sometimes coveting that very thing, but I wasn't getting anything from it because it wasn't from me. It was based off of what someone else was doing. So my prayers became simple. God, cover my day, cover my family, cover my mind, cover my heart. You know, those are still prayers. Prayers are literally conversations with God. And those conversations don't have to be cute, they don't have to be pretty. And a lot of times, the conversation of how I pray comes up in the unlearning certain traditions and religion because people feel like people feel like because you cuss in your prayers that's disrespectful to God. Now, I can see where they're coming from for sure. But what I do in my private time with God is what I do in my private time with Him. God knows me. We know each other. He knows that I'm working on curse words and cussing while having conversations. But then when you're praying to God, you're legitimately letting all emotions flow through this conversation. That's why it is a conversation with Him. Whatever you are asking God for, you are literally using that time to let those emotions flow. And it's not going to be cute and it's not going to be pretty. Your conversation with God is not always going to sound together. It's not going to be professional. Thou God, I come to you today humbly as I know how, asking you to send all your, yeah, no. God, I need help. Help me, nigga. I'm about to hurt her. Please help me. Jesus. That's a prayer. It is. It's a prayer. Because who says there's a right or a wrong way to have a conversation with God? Who says that? Stop putting these parameters on people when it comes to their personal walk with God. That's why religion is a box. Stop telling people that they have to live in this box in order to be seen or heard by God. That is false. Stop telling people that. Please. Stop keeping people in bondage and under your thumb by these rules. Please, please stop doing it. Stop it. And with that, with deconstruction, with unlearning certain things comes the rebuilding stage. And in rebuilding, you know that you need to show up authentically. And being authentic means coming to God in prayer with those conversations as you are and not as anybody else. And through this through this deconstructing period, you also need to give yourself grace. Grace is so important. And how I said earlier, with grace being sufficient for all, and it is. Grace is not limited to what you do or how you do it. Just showing up. Show up. Knowing that you don't have to show up perfect. You really don't. Rebuilding is coming after a time where you had to tear something down, where you had to peel back layers, where you had to be vulnerable. And in those things, you know dag well you can't be perfect while being torn down. You know you can't be perfect while being vulnerable. So you know where you're coming from in these moments of where you had to deconstruct these things and just be hurt by the fact of what I was taught all these years is not working for me anymore. But I don't want to I don't want to disappoint my family. I don't want to disappoint my mother, my father, my pastor. But it's time for me to truly know what God is to and for me. So in that, you're going to be hurt. You're going to cry. You're going to feel betrayed. So in rebuilding, you have to give yourself grace because you know that the phase of rebuilding is not meant to be perfect. You're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to make mistakes because you have to go through a trial and error period. You have to figure out things that work for you and things that don't. And with that, this is something that I wrote to myself. Once you start unlearning religion, you have to decide, am I going to just deconstruct and sit in confusion, or am I going to rebuild something that's real and rooted in truth for where I am today? Okay? And here's what I've been doing in my journey, and I'm going to share it with y'all. This is real talk. I stopped pretending that I had all the answers. You're not going to have all the answers no matter where you are in your walk. I don't care if you've been walking with God since you've been 2 or 82. You have the wisdom, but you don't have all the answers. So with that, I stopped trying to look saved like I thought I had everything all together. And I just started coming as me. Now, I'm not saying go to church looking toe up, okay? Now you gotta look put together. But just knowing that God is not here for the clothes. He's not here for the shoes, the red bottoms, the suits, and all the things. He's here to he's here he's here for you. The real you, not the you behind the clothes. I've seen people dressed to the nines fall flat on their face in church because they're hurt. They going through stuff. So if you show up to church to be cute and think that, I'm gonna catch a spirit here and there and stuff like that, you here for the wrong reason, sugar. Sorry. You're not here to look saved. You're not. You're not here to look saved. You're here to do the work. You're here to serve. Okay? You're not here to look cute. So you just have to really start showing up to church and being honest with yourself. And some days I believe I'm strong, and some days I'm like, Jesus, God, where are you? And those are the times where you may be flat on your face in church because you need to you need to let it out. And that's the thing. Don't worry about what people have to say about how you praise God or how give reverence while you're in church. If you want to be prostrate across the floor, if you need to take a few laps around the church, I ain't against a few laps, okay? If you want to, do your little step, cut a little rug in church, do that. Stop worrying about what people have to say about it. If they want to sit there and be stuffy, let them be stuffy. Because I guarantee you they're going to be stuffy in heaven. You know, that's just it. But we ain't worried about them. Show up as you. Be you. Do you. However, you and God have this relationship, I feel like that is what exudes while you're in church. The relationship that you're building with Him behind closed doors is how you exude or carry yourself in church. So, the second thing is I started asking better questions. I stopped being so surface when it comes to my questions, and I just started going deeper in certain things that I wanted to know about my spirituality and my beliefs. And questions like, thinking about what would your family think? Stuff like that. We got to get away from those. And we got to start going to, what does God say about this? And what and how does this align with who He say He actually is? Those are good questions to start with. And I'm going to say, ChatGPT is your best friend. The Bible is your best friend. And a journal is your best friend. Those three things together, on top of building community with other people who you can discuss these things with, those things are your best friends. I guarantee you. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Please don't. And also, after asking the better questions, I started to make space for God outside of the traditions that I was taught. And with that, like I said earlier, no shade to being in church. We all love being surrounded by like minded people, but God is not just limited to church. And that's one of the things that I discovered when I was unlearning these things is I don't have to be in church to get the word. Very true. But for me personally, I just love being around a community of people who are on the same walk as me. Now, I can say being in church, you have to find your tribe. And how I found my tribe in a church like Wheeler, which if people don't know how big Wheeler is huge. Okay, there's at least 50 to 60 people joining church every single Sunday. And every Sunday I'm like, God damn, 50 or 60 more people I gotta fight with in order to get a seat in the sanctuary or in the cathedral. But that's a good problem to have, okay? I'm not shading. But you just think that, you know, the people are the church. But it doesn't, what you do and how you build a relationship with God doesn't have to be confined to that building. But you can find people within the church to make your own little group to the side to say, these are my people who I'm going to go to when I have questions because they make me feel safe. I don't feel like I'm a number in this group of people. And I'm not going to lie, it does take work and it does take a lot. But that's why you join ministries. Those ministries that are built on specific things that you may be interested in your journey where you are right now, join that ministry. You know, sit in on a meeting. So that's definitely one thing that I had to do for myself as well. And excuse me. Oof, allergies trying to take me out, y'all. Um but that's definitely one thing that I had to do was to find a ministry that worked for me in order for me to not feel like Wheeler was such a huge place. So, yeah. I'm Devout-ish, as I have already stated prior to this episode and in other episodes, but maybe you are too, if you have some of these questions. Hmm? So, anywho, if this episode has hit for you, DM me, tag me, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about this episode. I'm always open to feedback. I'm always open to, hearing what the people have to say, child. Now, if you come for me, I'm coming back. Okay? Devout-ish. All right? God is still working on me. But anywho, I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for chiming into this episode. Oh, and before I go, um, this is a beverage. It is a mocktail, and it's from my best friend, Justin. And his brand is Measurements of Excellence. And he is a mobile bartender. He has his own spot as well. And we'll put that information in the description box below for you all to check it out. But I am on this journey of not drinking alcohol during Lent. That's one of the things that I wanted to do for myself. So this is a mocktail. He has a lot of different libations that he does that are alcoholic and non-alcoholic. But for me, I asked him to make these for me because that's a journey that I am currently on. So yeah, check my boy out. But anywho, I've been talking too long. So I love y'all. Until next time, seek in peace.